Slayer. Probably one of the most influential, if not the most influential metal band in history. If you look at how influential Slayer has been, all you really gotta do, for me at least, is look at the genres they inspired. Death metal, black metal, grindcore. I mean, you look at all the big bands in the extreme metal department, and they're gonna tell you that they were influenced by Slayer. Dark Throne was influenced by Slayer a little bit. Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, tons of different bands were influenced by Slayer. Probably have one of the easiest, they struck lightning 5 times in the 80s and early 90s with albums like Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits, South of Heaven, Rain and Blood, and Seasons in the Abyss. However, there's one album that I think gets a lot of flack. A lot of undeserving flack, to be quite honest. This is an album that I actually think is pretty decent, but not as good as their earlier albums. Good God. That's Divine Intervention. Divine Intervention was released in 1994, almost 4 years after Seasons in the Abyss. Now, few things to mention about this album first. This is the first album to not have Dave Lombardo as the drummer. He was actually replaced by Paul Bostaph. Now, at the time, obviously, this is very controversial. I mean, Dave Lombardo is one of the original members of Slayer. How is this new guy gonna do? And how is Slayer gonna do without Dave Lombardo? Well, I'll tell you this. Paul Bostaph can hold his own. Okay, and he proved it on this album. He's proved it on multiple albums after this one. But yeah, I personally, if you ask me, Paul Bostaph is a fantastic drummer. He has a really unique style to drumming, in my opinion. Dave Lombardo is amazing as well. I'm not taking anything away from him. For the love of God, I mean, he's Dave Lombardo. Okay, he can do like anything. But Paul Bostaph is a drummer that should never ever be snubbed, and it's nice to see that he's starting to get the attention that he actually deserves now. But moving on from that, this album was also plagued with some issues. During this time, grunge was really big. I mean, you had bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden releasing some excellent albums. And so Slayer's record label at the time was basically saying, we need you to write a hit song. And Slayer didn't like that too much. They hated that. So basically they just said, no, screw you, this is what you're getting. And the record label probably didn't like that very much, but hey, I will always respect that when you stick to your guns, even if sometimes you probably should. But in this case, I will always respect it when bands want to stick with their original style. However, another problem was about to rear its ugly head. The production on this album is inconsistent. What I mean by that is it just doesn't always sound mixed properly. It's not that it's mixed horribly, but it could definitely use some tightening up here and there. Another thing is that Slayer actually said a few times that they would want to go back to this album and kind of come over it. Do a little more working on it. And honestly, since they're retiring, I think that would be an excellent idea, because this album probably would benefit a lot from that. So, without further ado, let's talk about the music. Right off the bat, you get Killing Fields. Now, when you go through the Slayer discography, they always have the opening, that opening thrash song that just gets you in the mood. On Show No Mercy, it was Evil Has No Boundaries. On South of Heaven, it was Of Heaven. Seasons in the Abyss, War Ensembles. These songs that immediately just get you ready and kind of they make you want to mosh and bang your head a little bit. As much as I like Killing Fields, it does not have that same reaction. It's a little disappointing, actually. You listen to it and it sounds decent, but it feels like it's missing something. It's just, it definitely has no effect like Angel of Death did. Has not even the same effect that like Hell Awaits did. And Hell Awaits is an amazing song, but it just feels kind of okay. Like you listen to it and you're like, all right, it's good, but it's not War Ensemble good. It's not South of Heaven good. So yeah, already kind of a little skeptical. And then we move into Sex, Murder, Art. When I mean that the production sounds very different, all you have to do is just listen to these two tracks side by side. And yeah, you can immediately tell there is a difference in production-wise from various songs. I don't totally understand that. It just comes off, and I know a lot of bands end up doing that. It's not uncommon to see that, but at the same time, it just like it's very different. It almost sounds like they're going from like a production sound from the mid 1990s to the early 1990s, if that makes any sense at all. However, there are a few songs on here that I actually really do enjoy. 213 is probably my favorite song on the album. Very highly underappreciated song, mind you. This has a very cool intro, and it's about Jeffrey Dahmer. 213 is the apartment number that Jeffrey Dahmer lived in. And Jeffrey Dahmer is one of the most heinous serial killers in history. A lot of good lyricism for this particular song. In fact, like, when they were writing this album, the band at the time was reading a lot about serial killers and just, seeing government stuff. I mean, these aren't always songs, these aren't always topics that you won't see Slayer go in depth into, if that makes any sense. Because, 213 is literally like a song dedicated to Jeffrey Dahmer. Not like inspired by or about, but like it's for him. This is his song, and I think that's kind of interesting. In fact, I remember reading about this album like a long time ago, and I got really dove into serial killers and all that stuff. But there's quite a bit of schlock on this album too. I'm not gonna lie. Serenity and Murder is one example. It's okay. But the one track in particular that is so disappointing, and if they ever redo this album, they need to work on the title track, Divine Intervention. Divine Intervention has such a cool intro. For like a minute and a half to 2 minutes, it is so haunting and creepy. It's like Seasons in the Abyss. But here's the thing about Seasons in the Abyss. When the thrash broke out, it benefited the song. On Divine Intervention, it hurts the song, like, really bad. The song goes from being really cool and really interesting to, like, wow, you just almost ruined it. And when I say almost, I mean, like, it's not a horrible song, but you blew it. You blew it, that's what I'm trying to say. Let's see here. Ditto Head, probably the most well-known song off of this album. Good song, but, it's nothing like some of the earlier songs from their earlier records. However, I will make a point of this. I think that is one reason why this album gets the kind of flack that it does. Everyone always compares the later Slayer albums to those first 5 records. Those first 5 records are absolute gold. And I'm not gonna lie, when you strike gold 5 times, it's hard for people to be what's the word for it? Disappointed. It's hard for people to not be disappointed when they find something that's not nearly as good as that, and they may start saying that it's just flat out bad. This album is not bad by any means of the stretch of the imagination. It is not bad at all. It is flawed, very flawed at times, but I think this is an album that a lot of fans should go back to and listen to. It's like 33 minutes long, or 36 minutes long, and you'll be fine. You're probably gonna find stuff that you enjoy. 213 is a song I would actually really like to hear live. I actually come to think about it, I don't think they play very much of these songs anymore. Because I've seen Slayer 3 times, and I've never heard a song off Divine Intervention. Hey, whatever you want to believe in. Another few songs I like on here though are Fictional Reality. It's just I like this tune a lot. I like the main riff. It's got a cool chorus to it as well. Mind Control. Mind Control, man, if you want to talk about how to end an album, that's not really the way to do it. Slayer knows, they knew how to end albums. You know, Raining Blood, Angel of Death. That's the beginning of the album, not the end. But, you know, Seasons in the Abyss, Raining Blood, Show No Mercy, all these songs end it on a very high note. Mind Control doesn't do that so much. It's kind of just average. And honestly, most of the songs on here are just kind of average. But it's not bad. This is not a bad album. It's not as good as it could have been, though. And maybe it was, you know, maybe it would help. I'm actually a firm believer that it would help if, you know, the production-wise was a bit better, or especially in some of the songwriting was improved. But we may never know if we'll see that remastered album or re-recorded album, because honestly, it doesn't seem like Slayer is ever going to be doing anything after the farewell tour, which kind of breaks my heart a little bit. I mean, that's Slayer, man. That was one of the first That's one of the first thrash bands I got into. They're one of the big four, and like in my household, the big four is like sacred. That's our band. Those are our bands. And man, as much as I love Testament, Exodus, Overkill, I don't think they belong with the big four. They're amazing bands. And they can make albums that are just on par with those bands. However, the big four pioneered thrash at its finest, and I will always defend that to the day I die. If you want to do, if you want to do this, make like a big four of the second wave of thrash. Go for it. But the first wave of thrash is, you know, the kings, in my opinion, are the kings of thrash. Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer, and Metallica. Those are the big four for a reason, folks. You don't have to agree with that opinion, but that's okay. Well, I got really off topic. Anyways, Divine Intervention. Not as bad as people say it is. Give it a listen. You might actually enjoy it.